Welcome to qnawire.
The graph of f of x. To determine when the graph is increasing, you can see that from this point here to this point here, the graph of f of x is increasing. F of x is increasing when its first derivative is greater than 0. So f is increasing when its first derivative is positive. F is decreasing so our function f will be decreasing when its derivative f prime of x is negative or less than 0. So function will be increasing when its derivative is positive, and a function will be decreasing when its derivative is negative. If you want to determine where the graph is concave upward looks like this, kind of like a U opening upwards. So this is a portion of the graph that is concave upwards. In order to determine where the function would be concave upwards, we need the second derivative to be positive. And if you want to determine where the graph is concave downwards, would be this portion of the graph, whereas concave upwards kind of starts around here and goes to about maybe this point right here. We'll talk about this red point. It's a very special point in a minute. But this portion of the graph is concave upwards. The second derivative for these x values will be positive. This portion of the graph is concave downwards, okay, kind of like an upside down U. It's opened up facing down. So this is concave downwards. For x values in this region where the graph is concave down, the second derivative will be negative. So when the graph is concave upwards, the second derivative for these x values, f double prime of x for these x values, will be positive. Where the graph is concave downwards, the x values, the second derivative of the x values will be negative. So for these x values, f double prime of x is negative and the graph is concave down. For these x values, f double prime of x is positive. For these x values, f double prime of x, the second derivative is positive, and the graph is concave upwards. Now, this point, this red point right here, this red point is called an inflection point. It's where the graph changes concavity. You actually would have another one over here, because at this point, well, let's stay with this point over here first. This point is called an inflection point. So this is the point of inflection. It's where the concavity changes. Here we were concave up, we reached this point, then we became concave down. Then we're going to reach this other inflection point here, and we're going to start becoming concave up again. So inflection points are where the concavity of the graph changes. So at this inflection point, the graph changed from being concave up to becoming concave down. How do you locate an inflection point? At an inflection point, the second derivative, so we're still talking about second derivative like we did here, but at an inflection point, the second derivative will equal 0. So at an inflection point, the second derivative equals 0.